Mind Your Farm Business on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by RBC Royal Bank.
Welcome to the Mind Your Farm Business podcast, brought to you by RBC Royal Bank. I'm Sean Haney, founder of RealAgriculture.com and host of Real Ag Radio on Rural Radio 147 on Sirius XM. You can find more episodes of this podcast by going to mindyourfarmbusiness.com. Today's topic on the Mind Your Farm Business podcast is all about the need for you to have a professional development plan. The farm is a busy place, especially during the growing season. Trying to balance the requirements of building the business, managing staff, taking care of livestock, never mind family responsibilities, can be really hard, difficult, and complex. Sometimes thinking about our own growth or the professional growth of our employees can be pushed onto the back burner. In large corporate settings, the idea of a professional development plan is more common, but what about on the farm or the ranch? Most likely you have not thought about officially writing these goals down, but maybe setting a map for your own skill or knowledge development would be extremely helpful to yourself and your farm business. Today's guest on the Mind Your Farm Business podcast is Vik Kail. He is HR leader at Corteva AgriScience Canada. Vik has some great inspirational messages for why a professional development plan is not just for people in the ivory tower, but also farmers and ranchers across the country who are producing food, feed, fuel, and fiber. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Mind Your Farm Business podcast. Hey, Vik, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. It's a nice spring day. Very nice. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Well, I'm really looking forward to today's conversation about professional development because I think it's something that necessarily farmers don't think of all the time. Even if they're doing it, they don't think of it in the same context as somebody that's working in, say, a white-collar corporate job. Give us some of your background here before we get into the conversation.
Oh, sure. I'm originally from Saskatoon. I didn't grow up on a farm, but I did live in the small town of Bigger for a little while, had lots of farm friends. But I have been in the agriculture industry for nearly 3 decades. And I say to people, even if you're not from a farm, working with people who are is infectious. It's been a blessed career. And most of my career has been in HR with 4 very reputable and successful larger ag organizations, Federated Co-op, Cargill, Bayer, and now Corteva. And I've lived all over the prairies, but Calgary is my home today.
Nice. And when you think about working with high performance athletes, how is that similar to working with some of the people that are working at Corteva?
Well, that is the transition I made to at one point in my career, and I've always thought of employees as high performers, trying to do the best at what they can be and do, and they are a bit of a corporate athlete. And so, you have individual development plans for athletes. You have those for employees as well, and they're customized, but it depends on where they're at in their career. Certainly earlier on, there's probably more standardization in the learnings, some basic trainings, orientations, safety, basic business skills, these kind of things. And as you advance, I think they go more from group type lessons to more private and customized type learning plans. Just as if your kid was learning a sport. Group lesson makes sense, economical, efficient at certain points. When they progress, you really need to start customizing it and thinking of and being innovative.
And I like that, as time goes on, the needs change, right? So you think of like a young football player. They don't necessarily take great care of their body. Maybe they party a little bit too much. Yeah. They never stretch. And as the athlete gets over 30, it's probably like stretching becomes the most important thing they possibly do. And they also change their weightlifting regimes. It's similar in the working world as well.
It is. And, even people who are close to retirement say, why do I need development? I don't know. I mean, they can still get better in their job. They may be now developing others and sharing that knowledge. Or their development may be getting themselves emotionally ready for the transition. There is still development at all areas. Some people think, I'm not looking to advance, I'm not looking to grow my farm, all those things. Why do I need to do it? Well, you can still find things that you could get a little better at, that you could learn, that you could, even if you're just staying in the same role, you don't have to be this upwardly mobile, highly ambitious career ladder chaser for development to be for you. And that's one of the differences in companies. Companies have always paid a lot of attention to those type of employees. But really, I think good companies these days, they're focusing on development for all employees. Because one of my former CEOs said, in order to really bring out the true talent and achieve our objectives here, we need all our employees. We need to harness all that talent. It may be different for different people. I get that, but we need to try and develop all our employees.
So that's at the corporate level. But what about on the farm? You may be a sole proprietor, one-man band doing all the work yourself, or maybe you've got, a team around you. How does professional development fit into the farm?
I think it can. And I think the thing that people mistake about professional development, and this isn't my work, it's actually been around for quite a while, is that employees in particular focus their development on being in a classroom. They think that it has to be formal learning. And really, if you look back and I love to talk to people about how they got where they are and what they learned. And so my anecdotal research confirms what the profs and the experts say, that the most significant learning activities that people have attributed to their success are actually not formal learning, even though they had some of those. It's the assignments that they took on, the projects, the exposures, and some of the people they got to learn with and from. And so on the farm, even just getting exposed to different areas of the operation, different equipment, taking somebody who normally does the grain marketing and getting them to learn a little more about the actual operations of the farm, this can be development. This is the biggest mistake, I think, is people think development is just reading an online course, university course. It's actually not. The benchmark that a lot of HR professionals use is 70% of a good learning plan is on the job or assignments or projects.
And from a farmer perspective, that could even be down to, being a part of a peer group, right? Like
Absolutely.
Learning from other people that are going through the same struggles as you are, and learning from them and having those discussions and being able to ask questions that maybe, expose your vulnerabilities a little bit, and you really can learn that way as well.
I've had a chance to participate on a couple of customer advisory type boards, and really innovative, progressive, learned farmers, and the exchange in terms of what they provided to the organization about the organization's ideas and direction, and also the sneak peeks they got. It was a great exchange. And then what they really got out of it, as much as that, was they were exposed to 10 or 12 other like minds, significant, thinkers. And absolutely. Peering is a great development activity. Again, goes back to the concept, the best learning doesn't always take place in a formal classroom or institutional learning session.
But it can as well, though.
It can as well.
Yeah.
I would say I'm not in any way saying you remove that. And in fact, I would say the younger the employee, more likely they're going to have more of that in their plan. But it's a smaller percentage than people think. And actually, sometimes employees are their worst enemy, because they say, well, you're not developing me. I haven't been sent to a course. And actually, the company's investing you in a more progressive and significant way by exposing you to people and to learning opportunities. I think, your concept about, your question more about on the farm, I think the biggest challenge for somebody who's running the farm is, how do they help their employees develop? I think the challenge is, they've got limited resources, limited time. They're focused on, a season, an operation. What are they doing to help those employees develop? For two reasons. One is it's going to help with their retention. I think a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people, that's a significant motivator for them. The other part is it can really help the owner, the manager of the farm, move up and play what I call their position. If you're developing people, in the other areas, you can move up and play what I call forward. If you're not playing forward and trying to, lead the farm forward and score goals, who is playing that position? And I think when you know everything in a business and you know how to do it, that is great. You can cover, but the temptation is to go and do it and not to delegate. And I think the real test of any manager in a independent business or corporate setting is, can you delegate something you like, or that you used to do, or that you're really good at? to someone else who you know probably at the beginning isn't going to do it maybe as good as you, and definitely not the same way as you. But look at the development you're going to give to them, and possibly what you're going to do is free yourself up to really concentrate on things you need to do sitting in a CEO seat, whether that's running your farm or running, an ag corporation.
Trying to stay out of that trap of, if you want to do done right, you should do it yourself.
Yeah, that's a short-term answer. It is true probably in the short term, but not in the long term.
We'll get back to the Mind Your Farm Business podcast, but first a word from our sponsor, RBC Royal Bank. This episode of the Mind Your Farm Business podcast is brought to you by RBC. When it comes to your operation, a business plan can help you reach your goals. It's your roadmap to success. Be equipped to face the challenges of modern-day farming head on and come out on top. Visit rbc.com/chartyourcourse and speak with an agriculture account manager near you. Okay, so does it start with a needs analysis for yourself or for your employees? Okay, like what are the things that the people on the team, where are some of their skill shortcomings or knowledge shortcomings? Is it sort of like an audit sort of thing?
Yeah, I think there's an assessment that goes on. There's many different ways to do those, of course, formal and informal, but I really think it can be, it's feedback from others. And usually in many cases, people that you're working with and your boss are great sources of feedback for what, they're seeing as to work on.
Okay. And that process, like, don't let that be the barrier. Like, don't make it so complicated that you won't go through it. You can do that assessment in a very simple kind of manner, right?
Absolutely. I don't think there are tools and there things, lots of things that people use to gather feedback, but really observation of the person performing and giving them that timely feedback and then making a joint plan, hopefully, to address it is great. But I will tell you another little bit of a alternate view of this development plan thinking, similar to the other paradigm that I mentioned. I mean, there's a thought out there that development plans really focus on your weaknesses and your areas for improvement. Actually, true, but there's a real current thought that's been around for a while that says, you know what, you may, unless it's a fatal flaw, unless it's so bad, it's really toxic or just person back, you may not want to focus on the weaknesses so much. Maybe you want to delegate those, put them in the right seat on the bus, that kind of thing, but leverage their strengths. You'll get more, you might get further. This person might get further and be able to do more with their talents by you taking their unique strengths and maximizing them, putting them in a place where they can use them the most, than actually beating them up and trying to focus on improving something that's, just going to really be a struggle. Again, if it's not just a fatal flaw,
Yeah. Marcus Buckingham talks about this, the idea that you don't want well-rounded employees.
Yeah.
You want employees that are really good at certain things, because that's how you assemble a high-end team. It's completely contrary to how people think.
Yeah. When I was a sales manager, one of the biggest lessons I learned is someone told me, don't forget to focus on your high performers. People think development is about bringing up people or helping them. Even if you move up all your low performers, you may not get as much for the business, the overall business, as if you leverage the strength of some of your high performers. It is Marcus's work, and he really talks about, there's a tool, right? Can you do it by observation? Absolutely. Could you use the Strength Finder tool that Marcus Buckingham advocates? Absolutely. So, to your point, there are formal tools, there are informal ways to assess where somebody's at. But I do like the concept of focusing on your strengths. And my example is Sylvester Stallone. I always like to tell the Sylvester Stallone story because think of Sylvester Stallone, the actor. I mean, come on, if he was here beside us, he would tell you he's no De Niro or Tom Hanks. But he knew what he was really good at, and he leveraged it, and he played with it. He tried some other roles. Don't get me wrong. He didn't not work on his other dramatic skills, but he knew, and he created two or three really big, successful, multi-blockbuster Hollywood franchises. And a lot of people don't know that he actually won an Academy Award for the Rocky picture in '76 too. But he knew what he was good at, and he leveraged the heck out of that. And look where he went. And no one would say Sylvester Stallone is Tom Hanks or Robert De Niro, right?
Yeah. John Candy be another example of an actor that he knew what role he was good at, and it just repeated itself over and over and over in different contexts, for sure. Maybe
And it's not like he didn't try things or try and work on some things, but he didn't beat himself up over that. He didn't work, he used his talents in the right spot.
Yeah. Now, some farmers listening to this are saying, well, hold on here for a second. I have been working on this farm, this specific farm, my entire life. I'm 30 years old, been doing it for over half my life. What could I possibly need to learn? What do you say to that?
Ask people. Get into these networks and find out what other farmers that are your peers are focusing on, learning on. That might be from social media connections these days. There's, LinkedIn. It doesn't have to be in person, but I know there's a lot of in-person networks. And if you really want to know, ask your people. I bet you it's really tough to get that feedback when there's a power, structure there and you're the boss. But maybe there's a way to get that a little more anonymous. But believe me, your people, your partner, whether that be your business partner, your marital partner, they'll tell you.
I was going to say, ask your spouse.
Yeah. You got to ask them. I think a lot of times when you're the CEO, whether that's running a farm or running a corporation, you got to remember, you don't think you're intimidating, but you probably are just because of your position. So it's not like people are going to volunteer that information. You're going to have to try and make them comfortable, and you're going to have to really make them believe you want to hear it and that you're not going to retaliate when they tell you something you might not want to hear.
One of the other ways to execute professional development or continuous learning is mentorship. That's one that hasn't come up yet.
No, that's true. And, there's so many different kinds of that. And, a lot of places make it very formal, but I don't think it has to be. And honestly, it can be more of a peering type mentorship. And let's not forget that even if this, the owner of the operation is saying, I've been doing this for a long time, I don't know what I've got to learn. Maybe your role isn't about your own development. Maybe it's now about giving back. Maybe it's to your own people, to younger farmers, to, and maybe your role is as a mentor. But I would suggest this to most people. In every mentoring relationship, there's probably a reverse mentoring opportunity as well.
Such an opportunity in the business field to be curious and to be constantly learning. And if you can be even, whether you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, there's people still farming in their 70s, of course. Mm-hmm. Some of those people I see them, they're still trying to learn new things. And if you have that curiosity, you're gonna be able to participate in professional development quite easily.
So I've been doing a little bit of my develop during COVID through YouTube. I didn't realize there was so much learning on YouTube, whether it be about travel and places you want to go, cooking and new dishes, life lessons, coaching, business lessons. And one of the ones I picked up was on aging, successful aging. And they said the two most important characteristics to successful aging are what you mentioned, curiosity and conscientiousness, like discipline and seeing it through. So I think curiosity helps in a lot of ways. Good business. Sounds like it's good for longevity as well and health.
Absolutely. Hey, Vik, appreciate you joining us here today on the Mind Your Farm Business podcast. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you. Appreciate the invite, and best of luck to you.
I really like the idea of, instead of focusing on your weaknesses, focus building on your strengths. You can always hire or contract to supplement your weak areas, but if you have a strength, maximize it and your business will be rewarded. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. If you have any feedback or comments, please email me at shaney@realagriculture.com or call the RealAg listener line 855-776-6147. You can find more episodes of the Mind Your Farm Business podcast at mindyourfarmbusiness.com. Thanks to RBC Royal Bank. And until next time, keep on minding your farm business.